Senator Kaine, thanks very much for your time. It's good to see you as always.
Bruce, good to be with you. Thanks.
Bernie Sanders racked up another win in Wisconsin. Ted Cruz bested Donald Trump. Let's talk about the Democrats first.
Absolutely.
We keep hearing that Hillary Clinton's lead among delegates, regular delegates and super delegates, is so large at this point that it's going to be tough for him to win. And yet, over the course of the last couple of weeks, he's racked up victory after victory after victory. Is this a contest, sir, in your view, that could still go either way?
Bruce, I don't think it could go either way. I definitely believe that Secretary Clinton is going to be the nominee. I give respect to Bernie for having run a strong campaign, and he did well last night, and he's done well in some other recent states. But the delegate lead for Secretary Clinton, both the pledged delegates and the super delegates, is very large. And in terms of the number of raw votes that each of them have gotten, she still has a sizable lead in this primary process. She will be the nominee, but I give props to Bernie for running a good campaign.
What keeps him in the win column, contest after contest?
Well, look, I think there's things about him, but let me start this way. I encouraged Secretary Clinton to run in April of 2014, but I told an audience of people who were strong supporters of hers, don't be fooled in this race. No matter what the poll says, no matter how far ahead she is, she will be the underdog until the last vote is counted in November of 2016, because she's trying to do something that nobody has ever done. We've never had a woman president. And in this country, with only 19% women in Congress, that ranks us 75th in the world in the percentage of women in the federal national elected legislative body. We, for a variety of reasons, have had a hard time electing women to higher office. That means that she's trying to do something that nobody's ever done, and that means she's the underdog. So that's part of what's going on. She's just having to run a very tough and challenging campaign. It's exactly the kind of campaign I thought it would be, in the sense that the nomination wouldn't be a cakewalk and the election won't be a cakewalk. But I think she does good work in the underdog position. After tough losses, she often rebounds strong. You saw her do that after New Hampshire with a great performance on Super Tuesday, and I think you're going to see her do that in the states to come.
If she wins big in New York, would it be time for Bernie Sanders to get out so that Democrats can coalesce behind their nominee?
Look, I wouldn't presume to tell Senator Sanders the timing of when he should make plain that he is departing from the race. I do think you're likely to see in some coming states it will be absolutely clear, as I think to most of it's been since March 15th, that Secretary Clinton will be the nominee. So far, his campaigning against her, I don't think it's hurt her. I think it's caused her to have to sharpen her message. I think she does better when she's faced with an opponent than if she were to be in kind of the heir apparent position. And in some ways, there are some similarities between Bernie's style of campaigning and Donald Trump's style of campaigning. Not there are issues, but even in the style, and I think the debates that she's had with Bernie are going to put her in a sharper position come November.
Donald Trump has been such an unpredictable, unusual, mold-breaking candidate during the course of the GOP primary. Do you think he would be sort of the ultimate wild card? Tough to a lot of times, I guess, typically when there's a debate preparation, someone like yourself or whomever will be will do the stand-in role. They will attempt to approximate the person in the upcoming debate.
You're right. That
Donald
would not be easy. Yeah.
Can you imagine having that task? And more seriously, what sort of unusual opponent would he be if it's Clinton and Trump?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bruce. I mean, I think it would be somewhat unpredictable, but look, at the end of the day, it is about your positions and your demeanor. Do people see you and say, that's the kind of person I want as my chief executive commander-in-chief? I don't know any other state's politics like I know Virginia's, but I can tell you this. I think Virginia voters would have deep concern about somebody with Donald Trump's temperament in the office. And also, look at some of his comments. In a debate in South Carolina a month or so ago, he said, and this is a direct quote, "The American military is a disaster." 1 in 9 Virginians is a veteran. We have huge numbers of active duty, Guard Reserve, DOD civilians. We've got military families. Somebody who wants to be commander-in-chief saying the American military is a disaster, that's not going to go over well in my state, because people will want a commander-in-chief who talks about our troops with respect and not contempt. And I think that's going to be challenging for him in Virginia and elsewhere.
The world is watching all of this, and John Kerry, the Secretary of State, says that allies are very concerned. They're asking him, and they're asking the president, what is going on in American politics right now. They're worried. Do you get that? Do you get why that is?
Well, look, I'm on the Foreign Relations Committee, and I travel abroad. I was in Israel and Turkey in January, and back to back, the leaders of both countries said to me, "What's going on in your presidential race? What's with all the anti-Muslim rhetoric?" They didn't cite candidates by name or cite a party by name, but the tone of the race deeply worries them. And I'll tell you why, Bruce. These are nations, and there are many around the world, that are very sectarian, that have significant challenges and clashes between different religious groups. They don't want to always be that way. They want to be societies where people can live and work together who come from different faith backgrounds. And if they can, they'll have more prosperous and peaceful societies. To be that way, they have to see an example. And we've been their example. In this country, we know it, living in Virginia, people live on the same block, go to the same school, work in the same place, of different religious backgrounds, and we make it work. We're the North Star for countries that want to get over sectarianism and move toward a more inclusive society. And when they see anti-Muslim rhetoric, they see us backsliding, and that makes them worry for their own abilities to eventually have societies where people are respected regardless of what they believe.
One international affairs question for you. Are we seeing the sort of cooperation from Iran in the wake of the multinational nuclear deal that was reached with Tehran? Are we seeing the sort of cooperation you would like to be seeing at this stage?
With respect, great question, and the answer is yes, but then there's a big asterisk after it. In terms of Iran's compliance with the nuclear deal that Congress gave a green light to in September, they are complying with the terms of the deal. And even, for example, the Israeli chief of defense, essentially the head of their joint chiefs of staff, a guy named Ghazi Eidenkot, recently gave a speech in Tel Aviv where he said, look, this is huge because it has reduced Iran's program probably for 15 years and given us more transparency to what they're doing. That was a very powerful public admission by the chief of the Israeli military that the deal is working on the nuclear side. But we are seeing continued activity by hardliners in Iran who don't like the deal, who are worried about the advance of the reformers and moderates in recent elections and elsewhere. They keep taking provocative steps, for example, testing anti-ballistic missiles. And as part of the Foreign Relations Committee, I've weighed in with my colleagues to the administration and to the UN saying, hey, this clearly violates a separate UN Security Council resolution. They're following the nuclear deal, but they're engaging in other activity that we have to insist that there be consequences for because they're breaking international law.
Merrick Garland is meeting with some of your colleagues, but we're still hearing from the Republican majority in the Senate that there will be no hearings on his nomination to the Supreme Court. Do you think that position can hold? A small number, maybe it's just one actually, Republican has said, let's go ahead with the process. Let's take it further down the traditional road of hearings and a vote that we typically see. What's your expectation? And I guess maybe the real question is the precedent. If there is no hearing or vote on Garland, and 4 years, 8 years from now, the shoes are on the other feet. Are we going to see, is this going to become a normal part of our politics now? You just pretend like the president didn't nominate someone?
Yes, Bruce, and you won't wait for 4 to 8 years because the precedent that the Republicans are setting, and they need to pull back from this, is if you don't like the president, you never have to take up their nominee. They're saying it's about the last year of an election. There's nothing in the Constitution that limits the power of the president or the Congress in the last year of a term. If there was, 1/3 of the senators who are up for election this year wouldn't be able to do their job. So the real precedent they're creating, and they're creating it in a way that is directly contrary to the way they've treated 43 presidents before President Obama, is we have such disrespect for this particular president that we will not take up this president's nominee. That is not lost on Virginia citizens. We were on a 2-week recess and I was traveling around. They understand that this is fundamentally about a majority that is evidencing disrespect for this president, not the nominee, because remember they announced before Merrick Garland was nominated, we will not take up a nomination from this president. And you have to ask the question of why. When the Senate has confirmed Supreme Court justices more than 15 times in the last year of a presidential term, and never refuse to have a vote on one. Sometimes they vote yes, sometimes they vote no. What is it about this president, unlike any other president, that has led them to have such disrespect for a nominee that, by all accounts, even their accounts, is so highly qualified? I think they need to pull back because of the message it's sending to the people, and also because of the precedent it sets. And that precedent would be, if you don't like the president, you never have to take up their nominee. This isn't just about the last year of a term. It's a broader precedent that would do deep damage to the institutions of the presidency and the court, but the worst damage it would do would be to this institution, the Senate of the United States.
I'm sorry, in only the couple seconds I have left, any chance you think that could happen, that there will be a reconsideration?
I sure hope so. I mean, right now it doesn't look that likely, but those of us who care about this institution, and when you're here, sure, you're representing your state and you're representing your country, but you've got to be a guardian of the institution and the constitutional framework that establishes the three branches. We've got to be guardians of it. And so we're going to keep this, front and center with the spotlight on, to remind people that they should not disrespect the institution because of animosity they have for this particular president. They need to do their jobs.
Senator Kaine, always great to have you here.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks for your time.
Absolutely.